Warships, submarines, and thousands of US troops surge into the Caribbean. Washington says it's targeting drug cartels, but Nicolás Maduro calls it a plot to topple him. In a fiery press conference, Venezuela's president warns of a continental war, accusing the US of regime change by force. With UN data disputing US drug claims and Latin America sounding alarms, the standoff edges closer to crisis. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, on September 1st, speaking in a rare press conference, said that the United States is seeking regime change in his country with a naval deployment in the Caribbean.
8 military ships with MEAN-200 missiles and a nuclear submarine are targeting Venezuela. This is an extravagant, unjustifiable, immoral, and absolutely criminal bloody threat. They have wanted to escalate what they call maximum pressure, which in this case is military. And in response to maximum military pressure, we have declared maximum preparedness for the defense of Venezuela.
His comments come as the US government this week was set to boost its maritime force in the waters off Venezuela to combat what it calls threats from Latin American drug cartels. As of now, the US has not signaled any planned land incursion by the thousands of personnel being deployed. Still, Maduro's government has responded by deploying troops along its coast and border with neighboring Colombia, as well as by urging Venezuelans to enlist in a civilian militia. The US Navy now has 2 Aegis-guided missile destroyers, the USS Gravely and the USS Jason Dunham, in the Caribbean, as well as the destroyer USS Sampson and the cruiser USS Lake Erie in the waters off Latin America. That military presence was set to expand. A defense official told Associated Press on the condition of anonymity to describe ongoing operations that 3 amphibious assault ships, a force that encompasses more than 4,000 sailors and Marines, would be entering the region this week. Maduro said that he would constitutionally declare a republic in arms if the South American country were attacked by forces that the United States government has deployed to the Caribbean. He warned US President Donald Trump to be careful.
Mr. President Donald Trump, you must be careful because Marco Rubio wants to stain your hands with blood. South American, Caribbean, Venezuelan blood. They want to drag you into a bloodbath, to tarnish the Trump name forever with a massacre against the Venezuelan people, with a terrible war across South America and the Caribbean. This would be a full-scale continental war. They want to stain Donald Trump's hands with blood.
The deployment in the Caribbean has significantly increased in recent days as Trump has pushed for using the military to thwart cartels as part of a wider effort to limit migration and secure the US southern border. Venezuela's government has scoffed at US assertions that the country and its leadership are key to major international drug trafficking. In early August, the United States doubled its reward for information, leading to Maduro's arrest to $50 million over allegations of drug trafficking and links to criminal groups. But Maduro, Venezuelan interior. Minister Diosdado Cabello and other officials have said the US is threatening their country, and the buildup is meant to justify an intervention against them. Maduro told journalists that the US administration is seeking regime change through military threat.
On a human level, if you ask Nico, that is me, what message I would send to Mr. Donald Trump, President of the United States, I would say, seek peace. In us, you will always find a friendly hand for peace, for development, for independence, for dignity, and with respect, showing the Venezuelan Constitution. The pursuit of regime change is exhausted and has failed as a policy worldwide.
While US Coast Guard and Navy ships regularly operate in the southern Caribbean, this buildup is significantly larger than usual deployments in the region. But it is unclear exactly how the US military presence would disrupt the drug trade. The recent flare-up between Washington and Caracas has pushed US-Venezuela relations into dangerous waters, quite literally. The crisis traces back to August 7th, when US Attorney General Pam Bondi announced $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Venezuelan President Maduro, who has faced US drug trafficking charges since 2020. Bondi declared that Maduro is one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world and a threat to the national security of the United States. Caracas rejected the accusations outright. Yet, within hours, the US deployed more than 4,000 military personnel to Caribbean waters. Soon after, at least 7 warships, submarines and aerial intelligence units joined them. The escalation shocked many observers, particularly as it came only days after a US-Venezuelan prisoner exchange and the resumption of Venezuelan oil exports through Chevron, signs that had suggested a thaw. Inside Washington, the move has exposed divisions. Some policymakers want to confront Chavismo ideologically, while others warn against igniting a military crisis. A US official familiar with Venezuela told CNN,
Donald Trump came to the White House as a president of peace, and the drumbeat from some sectors of the Venezuelan opposition and congressmen from South Florida doesn't fit with the president's message.
But the confrontation is not about democracy, it's about drugs. For years, US officials have alleged ties between Maduro's government and the Cartel de los Soles, a shadowy network of Venezuelan military officers said to facilitate cocaine trafficking. Venezuelan Congresswoman Blanca Echout dismissed the claims, telling CNN,
For there to be a drug cartel, either you produce, you process, or you traffic. And if there is no cultivation, production, or drug trafficking in Venezuela, how can there be a cartel? It's unsustainable.
The data appears to back her argument. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, Venezuela is not a cocaine-producing country. Nearly all coca cultivation is concentrated in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia, with Colombia alone producing over 2,500 tons annually. Venezuela does not appear on UN production maps. The US Drug Enforcement Administration reached similar conclusions in its March 2023 report. 84% of cocaine seized in the US originated in Colombia, with Venezuela not mentioned as a primary source or transit hub. Instead, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime highlights the Pacific route through Colombia, Ecuador, and Central America as the dominant path for global cocaine flows. Venezuela, by contrast, accounted for less than 2% of Latin America's cocaine seizures. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil, citing a United Nations report on September 1st, told his counterparts in various Latin American countries that the deployment of US maritime forces was built on a false narrative. During a virtual meeting of members of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States Regional Group, Gil said,
The narrative threatens the entire region, and an attack on Venezuela would really mean a complete destabilization of the region. Let us immediately demand an end to this deployment, which has no other reason than to threaten a sovereign people.
Still, doubts remain. In 2020, then Attorney General Bill Barr accused Maduro's government of facilitating shipments of 250 tons of cocaine annually, less than 10% of global production, but still a lucrative trade. Yet questions linger. Is Maduro himself a cartel kingpin or merely an authoritarian leader whose government is entangled with trafficking networks? For Maduro, the accusations remain a political weapon wielded from abroad. But with Carvajal's sentencing set for October 29th, his testimony could determine whether Washington's claims against the Venezuelan president are finally substantiated or further eroded by a lack of proof. For now, what began as legal charges has spilt into the Caribbean, where warships and submarines signal a confrontation far larger than drug policy, one that risks reshaping US strategy in Latin America.